Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Here are 14 key life decisions and my thoughts on each. The ones pertaining to childhood I'm going to aim them at the parent, the other to the person. First, choosing a school, preschool through high school. I would walk through a school to see if the students seem engaged but not stressed in the classroom, at recess, and at lunch. I would look also for a school that had a quality theater or sports program, depending on my child's predilections. Both of those can, in addition to being most enjoyable, be an unusual opportunity for personal growth. The next decision, how strict or laissez-faire to be in parenting your kid. That decision should be based on what will be best for the child, not on how the parent was raised or some a priori belief about the issue. An under-discussed component of that is how much to use rewards and punishments rather than invoking guilt in encouraging good behavior. I would default to guilt. For example, I'm disappointed. I know you can do better, rather than, for example, go to your room. That will build intrinsic motivation, that use of guilt, so that my child is more likely to behave responsibly when he or she is away from my watchful eye, with friends, later on in college, and in adulthood. If that too often proved ineffective, I would supplement with bits of reward and punishment. After all, few adults would go to work without the reward of a paycheck. But I wouldn't impose some time-consuming, stressful scheme, such as putting up a chart and giving stars that could be traded for rewards. Not only is that annoyingly time-consuming, it's too subject to argument. My sister got a star, why didn't I? Also, even though behavior modification theory urges rewarding short-term achievement, I've seen kids respond well to a high-value long-term reward. For example, get an A- average and I'll buy you a car. The next decision is what to do after high school. The reflex is go to college. And for high school grads who did well in school, who aren't burned out on school, and would struggle without college's academic and dorm structure, they should probably go, especially if admitted to a college with top students and with a career door opening name on the diploma, ideally a college that offered generous cash, not loan, financial aid. But other students and their parents, notwithstanding the peer pressure to conform and go to college, would be wise to do a clear-eyed assessment of whether the best option is that inordinately expensive 4+ years of college. And most students take longer to graduate, and only 60% do, even if given 6 years. Or might a road less traveled be wiser, for example, learning on the job? That option is most worthy when a parent could open the door for the kid to be able to work at the elbow of a successful, ethical person. Also should be considered is the pros and cons of a formal apprenticeship, or starting a business, or most radical, although a possibility for the intelligent, self-starting lover of learning, being an autodidact, that is, guided by a parent or other mentor, learning what he or she wants from articles, books, tutoring, videos, mentorships, individual courses, and travel. The next big decision is graduate school. Some careers require a graduate degree, for example, physician, psychologist, researcher, or lawyer. But even outside of those, especially in a poor job market, it's tempting to go to graduate school. It buys time while gaining skills, and a resume-building credential is going away present. Plus, for some people, going to graduate school is a socially acceptable way of avoiding what the person perceives as the daunting or distasteful world of work. But the same concerns I just expressed about undergraduate education's cost effectiveness and opportunity costs apply fully to graduate education. Typically, too much of what is taught is insufficiently useful in one's career or life. Even many graduates of MBA programs, that seemingly most practical of degrees, believe its main benefit is the piece of paper. And with the proliferation of graduate degree holders, its value added in the job market may be decreasing. Before considering graduate school, I would see if I could become well employed without it, doing my personal graduate school by self-study, tutoring, advice from colleagues, attending workshops, and taking individual courses of immediate relevance, which is often called just-in-time learning. For many jobs in the for- and nonprofit worlds, it's possible to successfully make the case that you'd be a better candidate from what I call a UU education than a standard U education. And of course, there's always self-employment. The next big decision is how much to externalize responsibility. Of course, our behavior isn't totally under our control. External factors can include genetics, early upbringing, race, class, gender, even capitalism. Some people feel better by focusing on such factors, but the disadvantages of doing that may well outweigh. It may be wiser to focus on what we can control, taking baby steps toward our goals, and suppressing victimization. That's more empowering and in general leads to better outcomes. The next big decision is choosing a career. Many people make the process of choosing a career more complex than necessary. Most people could be happy in a quite wide range of careers. What counts most are just a few factors. First, does the career heavily use the person's core strengths, words, people skills? Is it the person a build-it, fix-it type, an entrepreneurial type, artistic, good at work, office detail, including computer programming? Second, does the career capitalize on the person's connections? Especially in a tough job market, good, stable, ethical, well-paying jobs with good bosses generally go to someone who knows someone. There is too much focus on finding and following your passion. The problem is that too many people are passionate about the same few things: sports, the creative arts, the environment, nonprofit causes. So supply and demand means that in such fields it's hard to land an ethical, decent paying job on which you're treated well. That said, there are people who, for example, insist they would rather face long odds and poverty than pursue a career that's outside their core passion, especially in the arts. But in general, unless the person is unusually qualified, dogged, and personable, the odds favor following your passion as an avocation. The next big decision, the role of romantic relationships. It is ever less expected that we marry or even be in a long-term relationship. That is a key freedom that was won in the sexual revolution. Yet many people still let the expectations of family and friends unduly sway them into marriage and usually children. There's no right or wrong here. Just make the decision of how monogamous you want to be and whether to marry and or have a kid based on a clear-eyed exploration of that issue with your partner and, if you believe wise, in consultation with a more objective person or two whom you trust. The next big decision is whether to break up. Many couples schlep along neutrally or unhappily for fear of hurting the kids or of a protracted, painful divorce. The answer, of course, should depend on how bad the relationship is, how likely the person is to find a better partner, or whether he or she would be happier solo. The next big decision is the valuing of work versus so-called life. If the best work you can get is soulless, just a paycheck, and you're not particularly good at your work, but the life part of your life is richer, it's wise to emphasize the life part of work-life balance. But underappreciated is the case for people whose work life is more rewarding than their personal life and prefer to focus on work than their personal life. That is defensible. Indeed, from where I sit, the life well led is defined by contribution, and the more one works at something ethical that she's good at, the better lived the life. Of course, he or she, not just she. The next big decision is how complicated a life to live. It's become axiomatic that beyond the bare middle-class materialism, more doesn't yield more happiness. Indeed, it tends to complicate life without sufficient reward, no less than the Dalai Lama said that more money means more worry. And many people choose careers and stay in them mainly for the money, even though they dislike their job, something they spend so much of their life and energy on. I know people with a big house, fancy cars, 3 kids, and a wide range of investments to manage, who often wonder they should get off the train and live a simpler life, doing work they enjoy more. Next, let's talk about your aging parents. That's an important decision. Much guilt surrounds dealing with aging parents. It can make a person sacrifice their career and even out of work life, even though less time-consuming involvement with aging parents makes more sense. Similarly, because most older people prefer to age in place, even when their children believe the elder would be better off in an assisted living community, they succumb to the guilt. Consider taking whatever an extra time is needed to find your elderly parent a good place and patiently but firmly encourage their going. The next big decision is your own retirement. There comes a time when health, the decline in your work performance, or the appeals of retirement argue for at least creating a glide path toward retirement, maybe including a succession plan in which you help choose and train your replacement. It's difficult to remain rational in making the decision to retire. It may help to think cosmically. Will you, your employer, the person who would replace you, your loved ones, and even your broader sphere of influence be net better off if you stayed employed for another year or 3, if you scaled back, or if you retired? Of course, think hard about how you'd fill your retirement years. The first few weeks may be easy, but you'll probably have years, maybe even decades to fill. The next big decision is end-of-life medical decisions. Of course, everyone should have an advanced medical directive. Just Google the term if you don't know what it is. For it to be available at the right time, give a copy to your primary care practitioner, and if it's likely to be relevant in the coming year or maybe even two, have a copy above your bed. While your choices are many, commonly in that document the person opts to, when incurable, limit medical treatment to that which increases comfort. If you're fortunate to live in a state in which physician-assisted death is legal, and you can Google physician-assisted death states and you'll find it, that's an option that many people should discuss with their doctor while compos mentis. And finally, your legacy. Of course, key to this is your will. Standard is to leave all your assets to spouse and kids, but consider how they'd likely use the money compared with if you left some or even most of it to some other worthy individual or two or charity. The choices in this life decision tree are of course not easy, but making them thoughtfully is core to the life well led. In any event, I thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. And in any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.